everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we're going to be doing this abstract stamping design. I thought I would just do another little stamping video going over some tips and tricks and just sharing some stamping designs really. So I really hope you all enjoy watching. I'm going to start off by using Kiki London's Sweetheart as my base colour. Now this is such a gorgeous pink shade, but it is a little bit on the sheer side. So it does need 2, sometimes 3 coats depending on how you're working with it. If I'm going over natural nails with it, to be honest, I don't find it needs 3 coats. I think on this particular design I only did 2 coats. So I've done that first coat, cured it for 30 seconds, and then I'm coming in and doing the second coat of colour. Now it's a really pretty pink, but it kind of has a bit of a purple pearlescent effect to it, which you can kind of see here. It's such a gorgeous colour though, and if you don't have it in your collection, it's definitely one to get. So I've done that on 3 nails as my bases, and then I've set up all of my stamping stuff. So I've got my polishes, my stamper, my scraper, and everything to hand. Now a few things do go wrong in this video, and I've left them in just to kind of show you guys how I would work around that. So first of all, I'm going to come in, I apply a generous amount of stamping polish, roll my stamper across the top, and as you can see, that's picked up really well. So when it comes to placing it down on the nail, I place it straight down and then rock my stamper a little bit. I just find this way, when I'm using any kind of image actually, it transfers nicely and perfectly usually if I just give that little bit of a rock. It just helps it transfer from your jelly head to the nail. Then I've cleaned off my plate using some acetone. Always clean your plate after every single image because it just makes sure your next image is going to have none of that old stamping polish. Now this is where we went wrong a little bit. Not necessarily went wrong, but the colour is too sheer to go over the pink base. So I've picked up this blue colour. I thought it would tie in nicely with the purple and the pink. I've applied it exactly the same as before. But when it comes to placing it down, you can just see it's too sheer. Now this can differ depending on brands, depending on colours. This is the only colour in my Born Pretty collection that I find too sheer to put over a coloured base. So if I was going to use that blue, I would make sure I'm using it over a white or a creamy colour base, something a little bit more plain. So instead of using that, I decided we would use a gold instead. Now the images I'm using here, they're quite full images. They're not skinny little detailed lines or anything like that. It's a full image. So when I'm doing a full opaque image like that, I make sure to fully cover the image with the stamping polish. That way you don't get any dips or any unevenness in your image when you pick it up. So now that we've got the 2 sort of abstract style designs down, I'm going to come in and use one of the faces. But again, before doing that, I'm giving my plate a good clean with the acetone. If it looks a little bit smeary, you can go over your plate with alcohol instead, but I find just using the acetone is fine. Another thing to bear in mind is always clean your scraper as well, especially when you're switching between colours. I like to clean it every couple of goes just so I don't don't apply any of the previous stamping polish colour to the next colour I'm going to be using. So as you see there on my scraper, I had a lot of the gold and the purple, so I just wiped them off before picking up the white. So now this image has quite intricate lines to it, but as you can see, it's picked up perfectly. I've just made sure to place that down in the center of the nail, and I wanted it to slightly overlap the purple and the gold so that it all ties in together. Now here my stamping plate didn't look very clean after that first wipe, so I gave it a more thorough clean, and that's because the white stamping polish is very pigmented, so I like to give it a little bit more of an extra clean when I'm wiping that off. So again, I've applied my stamping polish. I always scrape with quite a firm scrape just because then I find I'm making sure I'm getting off all of that excess without leaving too much smearing. Further along in the video I do get some smearing, and again I show you how we work around that. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the images I'm picking. So I'm picking quite a few of the same images or similar images because I want the design to flow and it all to tie together. So bear that in mind before you're starting your stamping, because when you're working on a client, it's a little bit better if you've got a rough idea of the design you want to do before you start doing the stamping, because once you start the stamping, you need to work quite quickly. So I always just find it a lot easier if I have a rough idea in mind. Sometimes I'll jot it down on a piece of paper. Certain images work better with other ones, not necessarily because they're on the same plate, they'll work well together. So I try to pick out a few images that I know will work nicely together. So back to the stamping. Here I applied a little bit too much stamping polish. So rather than it being a waste, I just wipe with my scraper twice. So I went in one direction and then went in another direction. This is just going to remove a little bit more of that excess. So if you do find that you've applied too much stamping polish, you don't need to wipe it off and start again. Just bear in mind to do an extra scrape, as long as you are quick. So you do need to work quite quickly when you're applying your stamping polish and when you're scraping and you're picking up your image. So if you notice straight away that you've applied too much stamping polish, just do 2 quick swipes rather than being slow, because if you start working too slow with stamping, what tends to happen is the stamping polish starts drying on the plate and then you don't get a nice neat pickup. Now on to the next image pickup. I've already used this image twice and it's stamped perfectly. This particular time, as you can see, there's lots of smear in there. So when it picks up all that excess stamping polish. Now what caused that was because I'd wiped my plate with quite a bit of acetone on a cotton pad and it was still quite wet. So what had happened is when I'd applied the stamping polish, it's mixed with the acetone and it's sort of gone a little bit watery. It's too liquidy, so there's too much excess. So when it comes to picking up, you get all that excess smeared polish on your stamper. So when you do wipe your plate with some acetone, you don't need loads on your cotton pad. But if you do feel as though the plate is still wet, rather than going in with your stamping polish, either leave your plate to dry for a few seconds or rub over it with a dry lint-free pad. And that was exactly what I chose to do. I re-wiped it and then went straight over with a dry lint-free pad just to make sure there was no excess acetone on my stamping plate. And then the image picked up beautifully again. Now, stamping is very fun to do and I've found it a lot easier since switching to a clear jelly stamper. I've been using this for a while now and I find that no matter what plates I'm using or what stamping polishes I'm using, I get a really good pickup. So this particular jelly stamper is the original clear jelly stamper from Clear Jelly Stamper. So I will leave a link in the description box below for that and I would highly recommend it. I've had this one for a good few months now and the head's still in really good condition, but you do get 2 heads with each stamper, so you do have a spare effectively, which I find really cost effective as well. Now all of the polishes I've used in today's video are from Born Pretty and I highly recommend them for a cheaper alternative, although I do really love the Clear Jelly Stamper polishes as well. They just are a little bit more expensive, I believe, compared to the Born Pretty. So when it comes to picking up the more finer detailed images, I still like to apply a fair amount of polish, same as when I'm picking up those larger images, because you want to make sure that you're getting all of that polish into the finer lines on your stamping plate. If you have a good quality stamping plate, the lines on them will be etched nice and deep, so your polish is able to go in them, fill the lines and then stamp on evenly. Sometimes if you're using poor quality plates, the images aren't etched very deeply and then that can cause problems when it comes to picking up your images. I've got plates from both Born Pretty and Clear Jelly Stamper and they are my preferred ones. Now this is what the nails looked like once I'd finished all of the stamping. I really loved the whole abstract minimalist look, so I loved how they turned out. I'm now going to come in and top coat them. So sometimes when it comes to top coating over stamping, you can get pitting. So you apply your gel top coat and it kind of bubbles or pulls away from the stamping. I find that this is more to do with the top coat kind of not reacting very well with the stamping polish. So sometimes you do need to play around and find a top coat that works for you. Since having all of my Kiki London top coats, I don't find I get any pitting when I use them. I'm using the no wipe top coat here. However, my preferred top coat for over the stamping is usually the rubber top coat or the classic top coat, you know, the one where you have to wipe off the tacky layer. I find that they go on the best over stamping, but I wanted to show you guys here the no wipe top coat doesn't get any pitting either. It applies absolutely beautifully. And then this was what the finished result was once I had cured that top coat. So I really hope you all enjoyed watching and picked up some tips and tricks or maybe some abstract inspiration. If you did enjoy the video, please do give it a thumbs up or leave me a comment below, and I shall see you all again in the next video. Lots of love. Bye bye.